Hello. Hello and welcome to 7 Ways Rewards and Recognition Connect Engagement and Business Goals. To submit a question or comment at any time during the webcast, please click on Ask a Question button at the bottom of your screen. Your questions will be answered right after Megan's presentation or offline following this event. You can also download a copy of these slides right from the webinar interface. This event is sponsored by Achievers. Achievers' mission is to change the way the world works. Their employee success platform is specifically designed to drive higher levels of employee engagement. It's built to align everyone with business objectives and company values, driven by recognizing shared victories every day. It's designed to make success a way of life. Thank you, Achievers. Now I'd like to introduce our presenter, Meghan M. Biro. Meghan M. Biro is a globally recognized HR and technology analyst, author, speaker, and brand strategist. The founder of TalentCulture, she hosts Work Trends, a popular Twitter chat and podcast. Her career spans across recruiting, talent management, digital media, and brand strategy for hundreds of companies, from startups to global brands like Microsoft, IBM, and Google. Meghan can be regularly found on Forbes, SHRM, TalentCulture, and a variety of other outlets. You can also find her on Twitter and Instagram at Meghan M. Biro. Meghan, welcome.
Oh, thanks so much. Thanks for being here, everybody. If you're here and you're joining us on some of the digital channels like Twitter, utilize the hashtag AchieversLive, and we'll get that party started right now. So listen, welcome. 2018, right? An even tighter jobs market. We have got a hyper-competitive business culture. Anxiety over the economy, increasing these disruptions in something I call the world of work, right? A few years ago, we all started hearing that acronym, which may ring a bell for some of you. It's VUCA, for a world of business that's all over the place. Volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity. I'd also add a D to that one for disrupted, right? Trendy or not, it's very telling, and it's a managerial term I'm sure many of you recognize, right? But it doesn't have to, and I don't think it should. Actually, define your workplace culture or your workforce. In terms of employee engagement, this is no time to blink, clearly. But if you've got the right kind of rewards and recognition structure in place, you can catalyze engagement and align it with your organizational goals. And you can keep your eyes open with a view of the gaps, strengths, weaknesses, potentials, connections, exchanges from peer-to-peer to up and down in your organization, right? And you can see it all across the board, right? In the form of the data generated, literally data, every moment, every day. These are really exciting times. I see a lot of organizations right now struggling to keep their workforces engaged and stave off retention. We put this webinar together to address these pain points, right, and others with solutions that I hope make sense. I think we can all agree that employee engagement must be connected to your goals, or it really won't be a positive experience for everybody in your business. But I think we all need to understand just how to do that. I think there's a lot of people still a little bit confused and why it actually matters as much as it does right now. The surefire way to make the connection is with a powerful rewards and recognition program. There's no doubt about it. This actually creates this culture of feedback that sparks strategic alignment. It also enables your organization to do it better and better based on what? That data, right? Data is powerful. I think a well-designed recognition culture aligns both employees and organizations around those same achievements for right now and, very importantly, into the future. When an employee sees their own future in your company, that's an incredible connection. It's worth its weight in gold, or shall I say cryptocurrency right now, right, everyone? These are such fun times. There's so much transformation taking place. So listen, I want to just give you all 7 ways to leverage rewards and recognition that you can do today, all right? So to that end, I'm going to focus on ways in which we can fire up employee motivation and engagement, making sure it's aligned with business objectives, to give you the information you need to keep growing, improving, and most importantly, catalyzing your own workforce. I want you to stay with me, everyone, all right? And if you're out there on Twitter, utilize the hashtag AchieversLive if you want to take part in a conversation. I'd love to hear from you. So listen, to that end, today we're going to focus on these 7 ways, all right? And we're going to cover how to place your people front and center in every moment of recognition, how to infuse rewards with meaning tied to business goals, how to create a momentum of engagement keyed to strategic initiatives, how to shape that feedback that connects employee objectives with key business objectives, how to leverage the impact of social sharing, which is a lot of fun, and we're doing that right now, to spark and spread genuine engagement, and how rewards and recognition can help fireproof your workforce against the dreaded, turnover, and how to gather actionable data from feedback and actually leverage it for even better engagement. All right, so let's get on with this party, right? Let's talk about achieving business goals. This is really all about alignment. I think about the importance of a great rewards and recognition program as part of this organization's overall commitment to excellence, its own excellence. The caliber of performance it empowers on the part of its employees, and the quality of the tools and systems it puts into place to implement that specific commitment. It's a formula. Experience-based engagement, right, plus continuous dimensional alignment equals what I hope is a business achieving its goals. So it's not enough, though, to focus on engagement. It's not enough just to reward people for doing a good job in the moment. It has to be a part of the culture of the workplace overall. And that culture really has to be part of the ecosystem of your organization itself. I want to throw out to you all some telling numbers on recognition as a driver of engagement and alignment. These here are from a recent survey of hundreds of North American employees, full-time, male, female, aged under 18 to over 60. So we've got a really nice swath of people that we studied. This was conducted by Achievers, the Greatness Gap, the State of Disengagement, all right? And what I want to point out were the numbers on happiness, recognition, and alignment. This is important. Numbers are very, very important to us right now, right? Employees who are unhappy at work, get this, 51%. Employees who feel recognized at their preferred frequency, low, 41%, everyone. Employees who feel unrecognized for their work in general, 53%. Employees who say managers don't give enough feedback in the moment, 60%. Employees who don't know their company's mission, 61%. This is just not acceptable right now, seriously. Employees who aren't motivated to support their company's mission, 57%. Employees who know their company's vision, 40%. I want you to just think about these numbers for a minute. And it's not just about engagement, and it's not just about happiness. There has to be meaning in it for employees. The meaning of what they're working on, what they're doing, why they're doing it, who they're doing it for, and not to mention, I know I'm really big on this, what's the vision behind it? Can you see the vision? Ask yourself that. How does it connect to your own vision? These are really key elements of any program and any human's experience within the workplace or a culture. So listen, I want to make sure everybody out there is still awake, and if you've got some coffee, get that coffee rolling, or green tea, or, hey, water. I'm really big into water right now. I don't know about you all. Water's good. So listen, stay hydrated because I'm about to give you a poll question. So I'm going to move this on over to the next slide, okay? And we're going to ask you a question, and we're going to want to hear from you, okay? So when does your organization recognize employees? I want to hear from you. Is it when they reach certain milestones, such as years of service? It's up to the managers. Some recognize their people and some don't. We don't recognize employees specifically at all, or we recognize employees for pretty much everything they do, which would be amazing, wouldn't it? All right, so what have we got going over there, Dan? let some people weigh in here. Give yourself a couple of moments. And we appreciate you being here and sharing your thoughts. Okay. So how are we doing? Is everyone done polling and with the questions? We'll want to hear from you. All right. So, Dan, you're going to share some thoughts with us. We'd love to hear from you. Otherwise, we're just going to keep going.
Yeah, I can actually share results, Megan. I'm happy to do that. Yeah, we had a bunch of people take the poll, and thank you so much. There were two. The first two answers were actually tied for first place, so both at 36%. When they reach certain milestones, such as years of service, and it's up to the managers. Some recognize their people and some don't. So those guys were tied for first. And then right below that, we recognize employees for pretty much everything they do. That's at 27%.
Interesting. Thank you, everyone, for weighing in. We really appreciate it. And we've got more questions somewhere here in the near future, so that'll be a lot of fun. So listen, of all the 7 best practices we came to, there's one that has to go first. Place your people front and center in every moment of recognition, right? How do you recognize your people says everything about the culture of your organization. You need a rewards and recognition culture that actually focuses on the people involved in the work. Go figure, right? I know it sounds really obvious to everybody. That's really the best way to craft a workplace culture that supports a great employee experience, and it forges this genuine connection between the organization and its most valuable asset, its people, right? How you recognize people is a way for leadership to extend through all the channels to all levels. Recognition and rewards are seen as a representation of how much an individual's effort and time is valued by the leadership of the company. What should you focus on? The individual, right? You don't just address your workforce as an assembly of names. You want to personalize it. Each person is an individual with individual interests, concerns, goals, and a life they're probably trying to manage at the same time they're working for you. Something to keep in mind, right? Not everybody is the same. People are coming to work as themselves. They're bringing their whole person to the office or your workplace culture. Doesn't matter where you are, right? A rewards and recognition program that offers a customizable portal in a wide range of different exchanges is a built-in way to acknowledge that recognition is personal, right? We've got small teams. Small teams are like small families, right, with an enormous influence over the whole work culture. Your rewards and recognition platform should offer ways for them to recognize each other, peer-to-peer, and team leader to other members. It should also work whether the team is all in the same physical or, as we know, very important right now, a remote space. We're not all working under the same roof anymore, right? Also, gig and remote workers. Given the rising percentage of this outside, if you still want to call it that, I don't, but you might still, right? Employees organizations are using in their workforce, a rewards and recognition system should also provide you with the option of including these outside workers in as well. So often project mix is a whole range of personnel, right? It's a whole range of mix of people. Extending to outside the organizational walls brings them in, right? It increases their engagement and builds your own workforce community and its collaborative power. You want to make sure that your leaders and your managers cover everyone, right? Managers have their feet on the ground and eyes on their people, absolutely. But they also may not be allowed to follow that same recognition and rewards program. And that can really undercut the workplace culture and increase the sense of being isolated or being in a silo rather than being part of the whole community, which is really, really important. So I want you to keep these things in mind as we talk about strategies, right? Let's talk about the power of validation. Speaking of putting people front and center, I want to tell you a brief story. I was recently coaching an organization's HR department on how to overcome a blind spot in employee engagement. It turned out that they had left rewards up to the discretion of the managers. And those managers had very different notions of what recognitions and rewards meant, right? In some ways, it wasn't a surprise to me, and this is a lesson, I think, to all of us. Take a manager in a security-related department as an example, right, and a manager in marketing. They have very different subject matter expertise, very different perspectives, different training, different targets to hit. So you can't expect them to be putting the same value on those same efforts. In this particular company's case, people were left out of recognition gestures because of a few reasons. One, there was no centralized criteria. Another was that the measurements weren't accurate in terms of everyone's contributions. Some managers were overlooking certain performers because they were using target and met those objectives on a spreadsheet as their guide. And the lackluster performance weren't showing up on their spreadsheets as part of anything notable. But also, other employees weren't visible because they worked at the beginning of the process, so their contribution wasn't directly obvious as far as the specific results. The company decided to make the shift to an automated platform that could increase or create a lot more data, but also incorporate everybody. And to me, this is the rub, right? It created a matrix based on the entire workforce. Then they broke it down into departments, hubs, teams. It created an automatic calendar for periodic recognition and feedback. It was no longer up to each manager as to when and what they recognized. Among the really interesting results, those lackluster and less visible performers, you ask, when the light was finally shining on them, they started to bloom. And performance, productivity, milestones, all those KPIs began to rise. And the other interesting parts are that people began staying in their jobs longer, not requesting any shifts to other departments. They were perceived to have more demonstrative managers. And also the managers themselves became far more involved in the recognition process. What they had needed was a better tool set, but each manager took far more pride in tailoring the recognition, driving these results, and cheering their people on. Pretty cool, right? So I think a rule of thumb to remember is validate every single employee and make them all feel like they're important to you and your organization. Okay, so next up, we need to start including alignment in when we're talking about rewards and recognition strategies, right? Infuse rewards with meaning, and this is so important, tied to your business goals. You may have heard this quote, it's old school, but I still think it's a really good one, from Jack Welch, the former CEO of GE. The essence of competitiveness is liberated when we make people believe that what they think and do is important. I think it's timeless, really. Except, let me give that an update. This is in an era when businesses have to be transparent or their efforts are going to be seen as insincere. And that's a really important point to make. There isn't anything as ineffective and as insincere, right, as a gesture to inspire engagement. If anything, they tend to backfire now, right? Employees are savvier than ever. An empty message is a tremendous mark against an employer brand, as well as a reason to disengage and very possibly look for work elsewhere. We got options, right? So with all due respect to Mr. Welch, let's add that it's not really about making people believe something, because I honestly believe you can't really make people believe anything, as many a workplace has found. But you can connect employees' efforts to your own mission and purpose in a way that sheds light on the value of their contribution and shapes their perception of what they're doing as not only important to them, but to their employer. So I want to give you a few guardrails to keep you on course with this kind of a strategy. Number one, you want to root the effort in collaboration. You want buy-in for the effort, right? Share the very definition of what your objectives are. Solicit feedback. An organizational-wide initiative to identify business goals can involve the whole organization, right? Not just one person. Create this ongoing conversation about what the business goals are that get people excited so then they can feel a sense of individual ownership in this collective effort. You also want to establish shared milestones and targets, right? Now, how are you going to articulate when you've reached a target or a milestone towards these goals? You want to survey the teams involved and ask for their input wherever you can. This is so important. Ask them to help break down the countless tasks, processes, and small steps that all add up to a milestone goal. Include all of those into that rewards and recognition platform so you can create any kind of acknowledgement when they're achieved. So important, stay on message. A rewards and recognition platform can be designed to include your purpose and also the project's purpose. You can see it as a kind of sub-branding. So each project or goal has its own space within which people are cheered, and they're cheering for each other, we hope, right? That really keeps rewards and recognition infused with mission, message, and purpose. Otherwise, you may spend your resources on recognizing efforts, but it's going to have little effect on the ultimate outcome, and that's not what we want, right? Okay. So listen, let's talk a little bit about timing because this is really important, and I think a lot of people miss this when they're designing these strategies. Create a momentum of engagement key to strategic initiatives. Here's a telling stat I want to share with you from Burson by Deloitte. For organizations where recognition occurs, employee engagement, productivity, and customer service are approximately 14% better than companies without recognition. And the key to that is, guess what? Momentum. Momentum is what turns singular exchanges into a continuum of engagement. If you want to shape certain behaviors, and let's be honest, discourage others, right? You need to optimize the power of feedback and recognition with timing and consistency. How often should we recognize our employees, a lot of you ask? It really depends on the goals. It depends on the workplace. Recall that 41% of the employees surveyed by Achievers said they are recognized frequently enough. Guess what that means? That leaves the other 59% who are basically continually disappointed, right? So this has a lot to do with digitization of work, right? But there is a vast difference between a sense of entitlement and different things like that. So, this is really, really important to keep in mind. So timing is everything, right? Okay. So let's talk a little bit about millennials, Gen Z, and recognition, right? Because this is really, really important. Let's talk about some of these myths. In terms of preferred frequency of recognition, no one is demanding that they get a red balloon every single time something gets done. What Achievers found, in fact, is that the multi-generational workforce survey for a greatness gap, 40% wanted recognition for their work once a month. Almost 20% wanted it once a week. Other studies showed that recognition once a week from a manager is a great way to stay connected with your team, but ongoing recognition conversation can take place whenever, wherever, and with whomever, right? So automation, software programs, and settings can really help adjust frequency to make it most appropriate to the work situation. If you're all working around the clock on a project due in 1 week, you're going to want hourly check-ins and daily briefings, right? So I think there's this myth that recognition only really matters when it comes from the top. The rise of the flatter management structures, as displayed in companies like Zappos, are partially responsible for another misconception that gums up our understanding of the power of recognition to drive employment or an engagement, right? That's the idea that millennials and Gen Z mistrust leadership to understand what they're doing. That leadership so far up the chain, they don't have any little understanding or appreciation for the challenges that these employees face. And this has to let it be known, this is a flawed assumption, that recognition from management may ring hollow on ambitious younger employees because it doesn't really affect how the organization feels. Only close relations, so it doesn't truly show an organization values them, right? Wrong. Actually, a vibrant culture of engagement includes recognition from a whole range of sources, including peer-to-peer, in more ways people to have to recognize each other, the better, right? Recognition and feedback from managers to their team members is always welcome. So is back and forth moments of recognition between colleagues. Millennials and Gen Z may assume that recognition results are actually transparent and will be viewed in some form and at some time by leadership. So the more that is happening with that environment, the better, right? One note, they like feedback better than one-way communication, and this makes sense, right? I know that the higher the adoption rate of a recognition platform, obviously, the more people are using it, and the more recognition moments matter. So I'm so glad that we're kind of talking a little bit about millennials, Gen Z, and recognition and some of these myths, right? Because they're out there. So we want to talk a little bit about shaping feedback to connect employees' objectives with any key business objective, right? We can all agree that everybody wants to grow. We all want to improve. We work on our golf game, our Twitter game, our skills and certifications, our knowledge, our performance. When you can link an employee's own professional objectives with key business objectives, it's an organic and powerful driver of engagement and also staying power. Employees who feel supported in their development are far more likely to want to stay on their professional trajectory within the organization that's supporting them. When they know it's related to organizational objectives, it underscores the probability that they will also keep being supported. There's a reciprocity to this that forges real alignment. Think about your key business objectives, sales quotas, production targets, innovation, ideas, service time, right? All of these things come together, and it goes both ways. But managers can and should be given the opportunity to provide meaningful feedback as part of a recognition and rewards program. A great article on the Engage blog listed the top strengths of managers, right? So interesting. It gleaned this by a range of great sources, from Gallup to Harvard Business Review to Google's manager research. Among them, great managers focus on employee strengths. Feedback includes noting the strengths employees demonstrate and recognizing them for the others, right? Gallup's 2015 strengths meta-analysis showed that there's a strong connection between employee strengths development and business performance. A strengths-based workplace was shown to increase employee retention by up to 72%. In high turnover industries, profits by 14 to 29%, and decreases in safety incidents by up to 59%. So they help develop employees' careers. And this is a great, great thing to remember, right? It counters another frequent fear that they're investing too much in employee training and development, and this is going to cost people when they move on, right? But according to Google's manager research, the opposite is true. Providing employees with opportunities to master new skills and grow, which can be connected to your business objectives, is a key way to increase that strength and depth of the team. And again, it shows that you are indeed investing in your people. One great way managers help develop their people is through great feedback, obviously. A clear and sort of honest and candid approach is always best, right? Great managers that provide direct feedback and don't try to sugarcoat it are respected and trusted. The report is revealing in this because it's talking about transparency on a human level. And to be honest, be clear, this is so important. And, you know, being clear with people is awesome. Being vague and over careful, they won't have a clear roadmap to follow, yet they will understand there's a problem, which could lead to some unwanted speculation, I should say, and anxiety. And top managers know the importance of recognition and rewards. According to Gallup, employee recognition not only boosts individual employee engagement, but it also has to be found to increase productivity and loyalty to the company, leading to higher retention. Another side of that, employee appreciation. As PR coach Kim Harrison points out in the article, which I encourage everybody to read, recognizing people for their good work sends an extremely powerful message to the recipient, their work, team, and other employees through that grapevine, right? When you reward great work, you transform the entire climate of your company. So very important. So, moving on here. Is everyone still with us? So listen, what about the employees? You can get their impact and feedback and get a real conversation going about shared objectives. Reach out, for instance, are there business goals to hit in any given month? Not only do you want to recognize that, but you also want to reach out to your employees, right, to find out what they think and if they're hitting those goals. Where are the challenges? Were there any snafus or unresolved questions? Were the directives clear? Was the criteria perceived as fair? And then how do they think hitting those goals could go more smoothly? Always ask that question, right? It's really important. Provide a space for team members to share their opinions. Acknowledge these contributions and participation, and note those who offer particularly high-level ideas. You really want to focus on the dynamics and the exchange, not just this one-way gesture. Connection is really driven by communication. It's the workplace version of call and response. Thank you, and you're welcome, right? That's what deepens emotional connections around peers, between managers and their teams, between leaders and employees. So whether you provide recognition, feedback, or a combination of both, you want to make it into an ongoing and continued conversation, a dynamic collaboration as opposed to, say, a static or a single moment. Last but not least, show EQ. Google's manager research showed that managers can't just care about their people. They need to express it in ways that are conveying emotional intelligence and empathy as well. This is far more effective. And recognition platforms that allow for personalized message happenings, right, and not just icons, are one effective way to do that. I think another factor is how recognition and feedback are expressed within a team environment. Managers need to have ways of understanding those individual preferences of employees. So a rewards and recognition program that is built on real feedback from the workplace, right, that can also be winnowed into individual needs. This may really drive more emotionally intelligent exchanges. And that goes right into the importance of employee experience, right? So listen, we're going to be moving over to a poll question now. If you're out there on Twitter, utilize Achievers Live as the hashtag. Okay. So let's consider employee engagement from your perspective. What would you say the majority of employees in your organization are? Are they highly engaged, somewhat engaged, not very engaged, actually pretty disengaged? It's going to be really interesting to see these results. All right, so let's start some polling. We want to hear from you right now and see what you're up to. Okay, Katrina, how's it going over there?
It's working on it. Maybe people are eking in a few answers.
Fantastic. Weigh on in. We encourage it.
Okay. What would you say the majority of employees in your organization are? 60% say highly engaged, and 40% say somewhat engaged.
Wow. All right. Well, thanks for weighing in. It's really interesting seeing all the different answers coming in, and we've got a pretty nice random sampling, right? So we appreciate it. Let's move on because time is moving here, huh? We appreciate you staying with us. Let's talk about the power of social sharing, leveraging the impact of social sharing to spark and spread what we hope is genuine engagement. Let's follow the journey of one instance of recognition for this, right? An employee logs into your company's single sign-on, and finds a manager who has recognized her for really working aligned with one of the company's core values. In this case, trying out some brand new skills she recently developed on a new project. The whole team sees the shout out, and many on it add messages to the window. The recognition has also awarded her more points as part of the company reward and incentives program. The employee can then redeem these points in a variety of ways, choosing an online class, tuition, for free, right? It's like going to school again. She posts noting that recognition and thanks the manager, her team, and the company. She shares it on Yammer, which is a social network for professionals. She also notes it on her professional page on LinkedIn. She adds a comment about it on Glassdoor, and for good measure, she shares it all on Facebook, of course, right? And a few hours later, a prospective candidate sees it, and it helps them make the key decision to try for a position at this actual company. He writes, right? I can see how much you value your employees, and I love what I see about the culture of recognition. I can see being incredibly engaged there and fired up to make this contribution. So we don't always think about this process enough, but social media is a powerful thing. A colleague of mine jokes that nothing is real until it's posted on social media, right? And actually, this is not just about millennials, everyone. This is everybody, right? Social media has incredible reach and incredible power, and it happens at incredible speeds, right? It's driving business in ways we barely understand, and I think we tend to underestimate it. A telling example of the power of social media just happened recently when celebrity Kylie Jenner, right? We all know Kylie, whose words can seal the fate of countless businesses, tweeted a lukewarm review of Snapchat's redesign. One single tweet or update of 18 words, one of which was so, right, not so great. It caused Snap's stock to plummet by $1.3 billion, actually, within hours. So welcome to the new world. Social sharing is a given, so I think it's something that it can work for your business in very surprising ways, but you just have to be tuned in. So let's think about some strategies to consider. I think everything that employee experience shapes connects with your organization, but social sharing also means it can shape thousands of others' perception of your organization as well. So make your company stand out. You want to consider social networks. You want to consider news feeds, live recognition screens. You want to make it easy. All of these things will really help you as you think about how you want to do this, right? Also, you want to leverage the power of a rewards and recognition program to help fireproof your workforce against turnover. Here's a really unsettling number. As of January 2018, 3 million employees have left their jobs voluntarily every month since June of 2017. This is actually data according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. While salary remains the most cited reason for people to leave their jobs, according to a recent article in SHRM, workplace culture undoubtedly plays a role. One departure triggered SHRM noted employees perceive a fairness gap, right? Or they feel as if their workplace culture is unsupportive and they're not going to benefit financially or professionally from this organization's success. You might call this the cog in the wheel syndrome, when a worker feels completely devalued, a number, and of course, woefully disengaged. We do not work for free. Anyone who thinks they can catalyze engagement without a solid program of recognition or rewards in place isn't really thinking. Disengaged employees are estimated to cost the U.S. between $450 billion to $550 billion, according to a Gallup poll. So it's not just a matter of damaging your workplace culture or a mark against your employer brand. It's actually affecting your bottom line. The cost of bad hires varies, as we know, according to what study you're looking at. But SHRM found that for each time a business has to replace a salaried employee, it costs 6 to 9 months' salary on average. So if you lose $40,000, right, this person a year who's a manager, you're going to be spending between 20 and 30 in recruiting and training as a replacement. Not to be glib about this, everybody, but it isn't cheaper just to tell employees what a great job they're doing and that making it clear matters, right? You have to show them their goals line up with your organizational goals, right? You have to provide them with meaningful feedback that speaks to their preferences and needs. to their own vision of how they want to grow and develop. And you probably want to spread the joy with social sharing. Hey, why not, right? So think about these things as you're thinking about putting this together. And let's look at the view from the other side, right? You want to gather actionable data and feedback and leverage it for even better engagement. Part of a real commitment to organizational change is making sure you have all the information you need to know how successful a process is. Is your workplace culture truly one of engagement and alignment? Is it the way across the board or only in select areas, right? But you can also stay on top of budget allocations, spend, investments. As far as engagement, the data that is gathered should be able to help pinpoint strengths and weaknesses and show what's and what's not. Not only should a recognition and rewards program be able to adopt and change, right, it should be responsive, and that's key. As you shift to new projects, you should be able to align to that new phase without any confusion, any friction. You want to set up those right measurements, right? Set them up ahead of time. Enable that continuous analytics. Make sure that your rewards programs and recognition software is always allowing to collect data, no matter what the touch point or exchange is. Activities, recognitions, awards, you name it. Use data to monitor this feedback, right? You don't solicit feedback and then simply note it and move on. You want to make sure you're creating a data picture actually based on that feedback, the who, the what, the where, when, why, and how. You want to schedule these automatic reports, right? Your teams and managers may not always have access to the analytics you need. You want to schedule reports to be generated and get automatic updates on their KPIs. Reports can be shared, emailed, or just popped in your inbox. I've seen this work wonders in the midst of a launch or a conference. We need data when we need it, right? So it should be available, recent, ready, right where you want it. Okay, rewards at work. There are a number of ways to initiate a cultural change in your organization. The first thing you want to do is find out what you need. For instance, SHRM created an employee engagement survey that can be customized to ask the right questions your workforce needs about how employees are engaged and what kind of factors are driving that. It covers more than 50 aspects of job satisfaction and engagement and can be benchmarked against overall norms based on SHRM's own data. Achievers will conduct an extensive dive with your organization into your objectives for your business as well as your employees, and then tailor that and mobilize a rewards and recognition program specifically for your culture and your org, right? Whatever it includes, from wellness, performance, development, or safety rewards to employees or departments or teams of the month. It's all calibrated to what? The business objectives. It's all part of that big picture. It's not really a matter of if anymore. If you want to be competitive in the workplace and attract, engage, and retain the kind of talent you need to stay that way, when you craft this kind of culture of rewards and recognition that's focused not only on the employee, but the bigger experience, you're doing something right. You actually deepen that engagement. How you respond to your employees' efforts says so much about how you value your employees. You want to shape their behaviors, right? You want to strategically guide everyone to better outcomes, forge that emotional connection among your people. The connective tissue here is a rewards and recognition system, and it makes everyone in your workplace stronger together. Okay, well, listen, I want to thank you. I am all set with my end of this day here that we're having with Achievers Live. Are you using our hashtag, by the way, on Twitter? I hope you are. Thank you for being here and being present. I know it's a lot of information I just shared. I'm always here for questions.
Yeah, you know, Megan, we actually have had a few come in, and I encourage you, if you haven't asked a question, to go ahead and do it. No question. Every question is terrific and will be answered either by Megan or offline after the webinar. So here's a question about executive buy-in. We're having a problem getting executive buy-in on a recognition program. Any advice for convincing the CPO?
The CPO, huh?
Yeah.
Well, I think what makes the program prove its worth business-wise are these tangible results I was talking about. And I think that's really going to depend on the quality of the data, right? From the beginning, I think you want to try to commit to sharing the analytics with the CPO. If you're a powerful software solution, right, that's customizable. You can measure for those specific KPIs from early adoption, we hope. Then along the course of the first year, you may see a correlation, we hope, between recognitions and engagements. And you can also see how goals are being reached and objectives as well. Also, I think you probably want to enlist CPO in a campaign to solicit this feedback from your workforce, right? This is going to help everybody get on the same page. I think that's been found to have some big pluses for businesses in terms of something we call time and productivity, which I know matters to a lot of you managers out there. So hopefully that helps.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so here's a feisty one. Okay, millennials. So do they really need feedback that much? They're commenting on your slides around the millennials and the Gen Xers. I see your point about how we've misjudged them in terms of entitlement, but we're a lean and mean operation. We don't have time to coddle anyone, and they're actually not telling us they need it. So what do you say to that, Megan?
Well, I mean, it's a great question. I think we're still asking ourselves this question, right? I know I'm talking about it, blogging and tweeting about it quite a bit, but I think there's actually a great article on this in Gallup's Business Journal, if anyone's checked that out. And I love the title, so I usually remember it. It's called Managers, Millennials Want Feedback, but They Won't Ask for It. So what they found is that millennials do a whole lot better if they have regular feedback in regular meetings. So I take this further and add that millennials are really connoisseurs of great feedback, if you think about it, right? I think we all are becoming that. We thrive on it, and they will, those millennials, take it to heart and follow it to the letter in order to improve. I think their work ethic is usually pretty strong, but it runs the gamut like anybody, right? We're all people. We're all individuals at the core of this. Gallup found that 19% of millennials polled said they received routine feedback, and that's 1/5. So even less than that, 17%, feel like it was meaningful feedback. So I think there's a lot of instances of this. You can find them, if you check out LinkedIn's blog. Certainly Achievers has some great materials on it. But as the Gallup writers found out, millennials won't ask. So I think that's something to really keep in mind. When you look at the data, 15% of them said they felt like it was up to them to ask for feedback. So you may wind up with a whole lot of disengaged talent just because you've been waiting for them to speak up. According to this, 85% of them won't. So feedback, I think, is really very much part of the employee experience when we talk about this.
Oh, that's really interesting. Thank you, and thank you for that question. Can you give us a kind of simple list of some of the best practices we can use around recognition and rewards?
Oh, sure. I think it's up to your individual culture and your needs, but I think if you're going to drive the shift towards a recognition-based culture, here's some tips that I can send your way. I think, again, you want to set up that dialogue so you can solicit feedback on issues as well as recognizing people for their work. I know it sounds obvious, but so many of us don't take time to do that. I think there's a give and take and a real conversation about workflow, processes, dynamics, and resources. I think you want to connect this dialogue to your larger objectives so employees can feel strategically aligned and more aware of that big picture and see their place within it, right? You definitely want to vary your tone, the size, the content, and even the nature of your recognition. You want to make sure it can move any way it needs to. It could be peer-to-peer. It could be from a leader to an employee. It could be managers to teams, teams to other teams. It should be very flexible so it feels real and not forced. I think you want to reward the good stuff. I know that sounds really obvious, but I think what matters to your organization will really come clear to people when they're rewarded to behaviors and actions that actually support it. I think you want to use recognition to positively drive these desired behaviors. And I think that's far more important than focusing on the negatives, which I think sometimes we tend to do. And most importantly, you want to share with everyone. Don't keep your people in the dark. This is so important. So hopefully that helps.
Yeah, thank you. We have a question about high achievers. I know we'll have time for this. We may have time for one more. What about high achievers? We'd like to use them as a model for everyone else, but will that alienate the ones not getting the spotlight?
And you don't want to just pinpoint high achievers. Absolutely celebrate great work with feedback and recognition, but don't leave other people out. You know, if you want to give some slow starters a boost, use some goal-setting tools where you can work together to establish attainable goals, great. Maybe see them as micro goals, and make sure the employees are on board with the meaning. Remember, I talked about this earlier, with the meaning behind each of these steps. I think you want to show progress with analytics, hopefully, and that can be an incredibly encouraging way to drive engagement. In general, I think performance incentives are great. I tend to prefer non-monetized in terms of points, but they should be usable for whatever the employee awarded them, needs or wants, and keep it transparent and visible. Hopefully that helps.
Okay. Yep. Unless we've got time for one more. We really want to forge a new kind of culture in our organization. We're growing, and we want to make sure we're conveying a great brand. Can we use a rewards and recognition program to show us as a great place to work?
Well, I mean, that's a great question. My basic answer is probably just going to be yes, but I think it totally depends on the software. I partner with a service provider who can really team up with you on how to showcase the successes of your employees, right? You want to make sure there's a very easy, if not automatic, way to share moments of recognition and celebrate these milestones and rewards socially, right? Social networks are key. LinkedIn, job boards. Even consider something, maybe doing your own website, right, about how recognition culture is working in your own company. I think this is a great business goal to align with. You want to be seen as an employer who celebrates their people and their work, ideally, and that's exactly what this is about. I mean, on the inside, you want to make sure you're sharing feedback with your teams and your employees that they can then use to improve, so there's a real sense of progress that's being made as a continuous effort to excel. So, I mean, this is really about collaboration. It's not just a software purchase. And I think the best-in-class companies are going to really treat you like a partner and not just a customer or a number, which I think so many people often feel these days.
Wonderful. Well, we're going to need to end there. And I want to just do a couple of thank yous. I want to thank Achievers for sponsoring this webinar. And Megan, what an informative and compelling webinar. Thank you so much for presenting and for this terrific information. And for those of you in the audience, thank you for making us a part of your day. We hope you'll come back and join us again for another webinar soon. Megan, thank you so much again, and goodbye.